The Earth, My Butt, and Other Big Round Things is an excellent book. I personally loved it, and I read it in one afternoon. This actually wasn't the first time that I've read it, though. I read this book when it came out in 2003, and I remembered enjoying it thoroughly and thought it would be a perfect choice for this book talk. 7 years later, I find that it is just as relevant as the first time that I read it. Now, I wasn't a teenager when I read it the first time, and I'm not a teenager now, obviously, but I think that it is something that teenagers can relate to. Body issues, sexuality, family dynamics, growing up feeling like an outcast are all things that teenagers face in one way or another. At the same time, these are some of the reasons why this book was challenged in the first place. Now, I'm going to read a review from the back of this book, which is the title, The Earth, My Butt, and Other Big Round Things. Megan McCaffrey, author of Sloppy First and Second Helpings, writes that this is one of the most engaging books that I've read in a long time. Virginia Shreeves is a funny, vibrant anti-heroine whose realistic imperfections make her all the more appealing. By turns clueless and wise, insecure and ballsy, cynical and full of hope, Virginia is a character every teenage girl can relate to on some level. Absolutely. The other reviews that I read in my research online said the same thing, that this is a funny book, it's an engaging book, it's something that people can relate to. It's an excellent story. It's something that I think that teens really would enjoy reading. So why is it that it was on the 2006 list of most challenged books? Well, it's on that list for the exact same reasons that it is so engaging and so funny and so relevant. Things like body issues and sexuality and family dynamics are the reasons that it got challenged in the first place. Now, in the rest of my PowerPoint presentation, it's going to be identified more fully. But I will tell you that one of the reasons that it was challenged is because of it being anti-family. What does that mean? It means that Virginia doesn't like her family throughout the entire novel. And guess what? That is something that is very common with teens. There is a rebellious period. Most teens at some point are going to rebel. Now, they may not fly off to Seattle, and they may not get their eyebrow pierced, and they may not defy their parents, and I'm not saying that they should. But it's something that they can relate to. Maybe they want to do those things. Maybe doing it vicariously through Virginia will satisfy something in themselves. Sexuality. A lot of adults do not want to admit that teens have either engaged in some form of sexuality or are thinking about it or have questions about it or are worried about it, but they are. And if a teenager doesn't have some place to think about those feelings, it just erupts inside of them. The same people, unfortunately, who like to challenge some of these books are the same people who would not be willing to talk to their teens. On one hand, they might say, well, I don't think my child should be reading something that has sexuality in it. And this is not a pornographic book by any means. It just talks about it a little bit. But these are the same people who may not talk to their children in a frank manner. And some of the other reviews that I read about this book did say that the topics were spoken about frankly. Now, I would not recommend this book for a child, not a small child by any means. I think that it's most appropriate for older teenagers. Now, the main character is 15 years old, so 15 years old and up I think is very appropriate. Carolyn Mackler, the author of the book, did not give a designated reading level for this book, but older teens would probably find it most appealing. Now, one thing that I find so amazing is that censorship is still so prevalent. Why is it that in 2010 people are still challenging books that don't need to be challenged? And there was a time in my life when I would have not read this book, thinking that, well, someone said it was bad, so there must be something really bad in it. This was challenged in 2006. It was one of the most challenged books that year, even though over 500 books were challenged that same year. At the same time that this is challenged, we see that it is a Michael L. Prince Award winner for excellence in young adult literature, given by the ALA. So, while this book has been challenged, it has its merits. It's an excellent novel, and it's one that I hope that people will truly read and enjoy. Thank you.